Once upon a time, in ages long past, there lived a mighty king named Shahryar. He resided in a magnificent palace surrounded by gardens and rivers, yet he was not happy. A deep wound festered in his heart, driving him to marry a woman each night, only to order her execution at dawn, fearing betrayal as his first wife had done. Until Scheherazade arrived, the daughter of one of his viziers. She was a clever maiden who realized that stories and tales might be her path to survival from the sword of Shahryar's executioner, Masrur, who waited at her chamber door for the king's command to kill her. So every night she began to tell him an enthralling story, stopping before its completion at the break of dawn, thus postponing her death until he could hear the end. On their first night as husband and wife, she sat beside the king and said, "It has reached me, O happy king of wise counsel, that a pious merchant was travelling through the desert, returning to his family from a trading journey. He paused in his return to rest at an oasis and sat beneath a large tree nearby. He ate some dates and began to toss the date pits he consumed into the sand. Little did he know that these small seeds would lead him to his doom." As the merchant sat beneath the tree, a terrifying genie appeared before him, his face as black as night, his eyes as red as embers. He roared in a voice like thunder, "O merchant, you have killed my son, and you must pay the price." The merchant trembled and said, "How have I killed him?" "I have not laid a hand to harm anyone." The genie replied, "My son was sleeping on the sand, and when you threw the pit, it struck him fatally, and he died. Now I will accept nothing but your soul in exchange for his." The merchant pleaded with the genie, wept, and begged for mercy, but the genie was wrathful and stern. After much back and forth, he decided to grant the merchant a month's reprieve to return to his family, bid them farewell, settle his debts, and then return to face his fate. The merchant returned to his land and spent his final days among his family and loved ones, never ceasing his prayers. "O my God, O vast of forgiveness, O you who neither slumber nor sleep, you know that I did not kill intentionally, nor did I sin unjustly, so save me, O most merciful." When his days were over, fulfilling his promise to the genie, he packed his belongings and returned to the oasis, still uttering prayers. On his way, he encountered an old man with a tame gazelle. The old man asked him about his destination, and the merchant recounted his tragedy with the genie. The old man lowered his head and said, "I will not leave you alone. I will go with you and tell the genie my story. If he finds it pleasing, I will ask him to pardon you." The merchant and the old man continued their journey until they met another man with 2 black dogs. After the second man heard the merchant's tale, he said, "I too will go with you, and I will tell the genie my story. If he pardons you, that will be for the best." And so, the 3 men journeyed together until they reached the oasis, where the genie was waiting for them. The first old man said to the genie, "O genie, before you kill this merchant, hear my story, and if it pleases you, then pardon him." The genie refused, so the old man said, "Then will you pardon 1/3 of his blood if my story pleases you?" The genie agreed and said, "Speak, let us see." The old man said to the genie, "Do you see this gazelle beside me? She is my wife, Ashjan." The genie was astonished. "This gazelle is your wife?" Then the man began to tell his story. "I was a wealthy merchant. After my first wife, the mother of my only son, died, I married another woman named Ashjan," and he pointed to the gazelle. "She seemed kind at first, but after a year of our marriage, her nature changed, and she revealed her true face of greed and malice. She used black magic to get rid of my only son, transforming him into a lamb, and demanded that I slaughter him with my own hands so that we could eat him. Whenever I returned home from my work and asked about my son, She would say that he was playing with the neighbours' children and would spend the night with them. Sadly, I believed her. Despite her repeated demands for me to slaughter the lamb, I could not, and at the time, I did not know why. So, I tied him in the stable and then travelled for my trade. One day, while I was in the market, I saw an old woman whose belongings had fallen and no one came forward to help her. I left what I was doing and rushed to her aid, carrying her goods and taking her to safety. The old woman thanked me and said, "I will repay your kindness, and I will tell you what your wife has plotted against your son. The one in the stable, whom you were about to slaughter, is your son. This is the work of your wicked wife's magic." Then she assured me that she would utter a spell to turn the magic back on the sorcerer and asked me to return home quickly to save him. I returned, unable to believe what I had heard. Upon reaching the stable, I found my son tied up instead of the lamb. I wept and embraced him, begging his forgiveness for not paying attention and protecting him from my wife's deceit. Then I rushed into the house, angry and determined to punish her, and called out, "Where are you, Ashjan?" Suddenly, this gazelle approached me, wearing my wife's clothes. I knew then that the magic had turned against her thanks to the old woman's spell. Since that day, I have travelled the lands with her, searching for that old woman in the hope that she might break the enchantment. The genie was impressed by the story and shook his head, saying, "I have pardoned a third of the merchant's blood." At this point, Scheherazade fell silent and looked at the window where the light of dawn was breaking. She said, and here Scheherazade perceived the dawn, so she ceased speaking the permitted speech. The king felt intense curiosity to hear the rest of the story, but he said, "Tomorrow I will hear the rest of the tale."